Good afternoon. We will start today with a statement from the Secretary General, followed by a statement from the President of the Republic of Poland, and after that we will take your questions.
President Duda, dear Adrzej, welcome back to Brussels. It's always great to see you. Poland has been a dedicated ally for over 25 years, and in fact, next week will mark 26 years since Poland joined NATO on the 12th of March 1999. So, happy anniversary. Poland makes significant contributions to Allied security. You lead by example when it comes to investing in defense, with 4.7% defense expenditure pledged for this year. You host one of NATO's forward land forces, sending a strong signal of our readiness to deter and defend. You also contribute to the NATO multinational presence in Latvia and in Romania. And later this month, Poland will contribute to NATO's Baltic air policing mission. On land, at sea and in the air, Poland has demonstrated firm commitment to playing its part in our great alliance. And your NATO allies stand with you. You also play a vital role in supporting our partner and your neighbor, Ukraine. These are uncertain times, and I know some may have concerns about NATO's future, so let me be clear. The transatlantic relationship and the transatlantic partnership remains the bedrock of our alliance. President Trump has made clear its commitment of the US and his commitment personally to NATO. And it has also made clear the expectation that we in Europe must do more in terms of defense spending. And here, again, Poland is leading the way. We are already seeing movement in the right direction. Last year, defense investment rose by 20% for Europe and Canada. And allies are actively working on what they might do more. In the last couple of weeks alone, Denmark and the United Kingdom have made major announcements. Germany, France and the Czech Republic took important steps, and the Czech Republic announced it yesterday. And I very much welcome these developments, because our shared security is our collective responsibility. And as allies work to increase their investment in defense, many are also working on how they can contribute to a just and lasting peace for Ukraine. We all want to see an end to Russia's aggression and a deal that ensures lasting peace for a sovereign Ukraine. So again, thank you, Adrzej, for joining me today. Thank you for Poland's steadfast support to Ukraine and your invaluable contributions to NATO. And now, the floor is yours.
Bardzo dziękuję.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to express my deep gratitude to Secretary General for this meeting today, for this opportunity to have talks directly after the meetings I had in the United States in recent days and after my meeting with President Donald Trump. Before that, I also met his colleagues, Secretary of Defense, Mr. Heksev, and also General Kellogg, Special Envoy of President Donald Trump for Ukraine. But first and foremost, we discussed today with Secretary General about the situation in NATO and about all the issues mentioned by Secretary. Thank you for your wishes on the occasion of the 26th anniversary of Poland's accession to NATO. That was one of the most important events which Poland has experienced over the last 36 years, starting from 1990 or 1989, when we broke free from the Iron Curtain. And today our membership of NATO is most important to the Polish people, especially given the current circumstances, when our security architecture in our part of the world, in our part of Europe, has changed so much. Speaking frankly, none of us, not only 25 years ago, 26 years ago, but even a couple of years ago, would have expected that we would be spending almost 5% of our GDP on defense. And this is the case today. We are the country which, looking at our GDP, is spending most on defense across the North Atlantic Alliance. And Polish people agree with it for one simple reason. All of them know that Russian imperialism is back, that Russia is attacking countries. Back in 2008, it attacked Georgia. In 2014, it attacked Ukraine, because in fact, that was when the war started. Minsk agreements and other efforts to calm down Vladimir Putin were done in vain. They did not bring results. And this is exemplified by the fact that in 2022, Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and this war is going on until today. So far, we have not managed to bring it to an end, which means that the threat is real. We can see it, especially in our region, on the eastern flank of NATO, in Poland, in the Baltic states, in Slovakia, in Romania, in the countries which have this war across their borders. So when we look at these countries, we can see that the increased defense spending in these states is considerable due to the perception of real threat. This is a threat felt by the people in these countries. Those countries are democratically approving the increased defense spending. However, there is one thing that we can be 100% sure of. If the entire NATO does not increase its defense spending, then unfortunately, perhaps Vladimir Putin will be willing to attack one more time, because we will have not enough deterrence. The thing is to make sure that NATO is capable of building strong enough deterrence potential, so that not only Russia, but no one else dares attack NATO countries, not only those which are close to Russia, but no other member state of NATO, because this is the core idea of the alliance, NATO at 360 degrees. We are mutually supporting each other in terms of building our security. And that is why 1 year ago, to commemorate the 25th anniversary of Poland joining NATO, I was invited by President Joe Biden to the White House. And on that occasion, I presented to President Biden, and also vis-à-vis media, I proposed that we increase defense spending in NATO by making a joint decision to the level of minimum 3% of GDP. At that time, this idea was perceived with a distance. However, that issue was not discussed at the NATO summit, which was convened last year. However, I believe that now it is high time that we have made a hard, tough decision on this one. That is why I have come to Brussels here today. And I also gave an application to Mr. Secretary General so that this issue is one of the items discussed at the upcoming NATO summit in The Hague, so that the North Atlantic Alliance decides that at least 3% of GDP is adopted. Of course, more can be done if people want to, if other countries want to, but the basis is 3% of GDP. We should allocate it for defense, and we should do it immediately. This decision should be implemented immediately, not in 2030, for instance. The reason is very simple. Right? The situation is as follows. We cannot wait until 2030. These decisions have to be taken swiftly and efficiently, and we have to rebuild our military potential. Because we do not need to explain it to anyone. We have repeated it dozens of times at different meetings within NATO and in other formats. It has turned out that Europe is totally unprepared for a war threat. We can see that, as a matter of fact, back in the 1990s, some people thought that the history came to an end, that there would be no more war, and that our military forces could be almost liquidated, that we could remove ammunition from our storages, and that we could deal with other things. And then when we had to help Ukraine, when we had to provide Ukraine swiftly with armaments so that it could defend itself against Russia, it turned out that we didn't have anything on stock to transfer transferred to Ukraine. It turned out that all the ammunition that the European part of NATO has will be enough for a couple of days of war to defend Ukraine just for a few days. So this is something that we decisively need to change. In Poland, we immediately made a decision on this one, and that is why we are buying really in huge amounts armaments, military equipment from the United States and also in South Korea. The reason is very simple. Why we are buying from South Korea? Well, we saw that Korean partners are able to provide us with equipment which is very modern within a few months. Both K2 tanks, which we have already bought, as well as K9 howitzers, as well as Chungmu missile launchers. The deadlines were 1 year from the placement of order, but with other partners, they are giving us the time span of a couple of years or several years to deliver military equipment. Having said that, ladies and gentlemen, we have to rebuild our potential. So this is the major task, not only for Poland today, but generally for NATO, and that was the topic of our discussion also with Mr. Secretary General. So we also need to rebuild the defense industry in Europe. This is also one of the branch of our economy. This also generates jobs for the people. So let us use this opportunity. Let us give jobs to people. Let us make our economy stronger through spending funds on military production, because the times that we are living in tell us that this is not only necessary, but it is also indispensable. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Mr. Secretary General, for mentioning Poland's contribution to the defense of Ukraine. Yes, indeed. We are a country which, right from the start of the Russian aggression against Ukraine, especially the start of the full-scale aggression, is a route for providing supplies to Ukraine. So we are absolutely a background for Ukraine, not only in terms of logistics, but also we are supporting Ukraine in all other things, because Poland is the place where refugees from Ukraine fled to. We were the first country to which they fled, and also all the transports go through our country with humanitarian assistance, military assistance to Ukraine is transferred through Poland. And also, we are the ones who are taking a risk, unfortunately, every day as a state, as Polish people. We had missiles which interfered with our airspace. They also hit the territory of Poland. Two of our citizens, unfortunately, died, were victims of the explosion of such missile. Russian jets infringe our airspace and the airspace of NATO. And at least once a week, we have to scramble our jets of NATO, in order to protect our skies. So, as a matter of fact, we are shouldering this risk of war every day. Today, what we have to do is to bring the war in Ukraine to an end. But a very important thing is that the achieved peace is just and lasting. A lasting peace to us Poles means a peace which will never be infringed by Russia. This is the definition of a lasting peace for us, and this is what we care most about. That is why we stand ready to support Ukraine. That is what we are doing all the time. We are ready to join various missions of support for Ukraine, which will be proposed. However, I also encourage you to look at it in a reasonable way. So the conditions of the future ceasefire, hopefully peace, should be developed in such a way that we are able to reconstruct Ukraine. Keeping peace and order in Ukraine should be possible, and to have that, we need a Euro-Atlantic cooperation. That is why, in my conversation with Secretary General, we said what is of fundamental importance is to keep the bond between the United States and Europe. And we hope that this stalemate in the relations between the leaders of the United States and Ukraine will be overcome. I have encouraged on a couple of times our colleague and partner Volodymyr Zelensky that he should calmly return to the negotiating table, sit down at this negotiating table with President Trump, because this is indispensable for Ukraine, so that it can be saved, so that it can be supported in this work of bringing the war to an end, in this work of rebuilding Ukraine. We have to do it together as the North Atlantic Alliance and as the transatlantic community, Euro-American community. I believe that this is the right direction. And we see eye to eye on this one, myself and Secretary General. We believe that we need to search for an agreement, but what is indispensable? It is indispensable to make sure that NATO is also mutually credible, and to have that, we need to increase defense spending within NATO. And this thing has to be put on the table in a very strong way at the upcoming NATO summit. Ladies and gentlemen, we in Poland believe in NATO. We firmly believe in this community. That is why I encourage Secretary General to come to Poland, also on the occasion of the 26th anniversary of Poland's joining NATO, because the presence of Secretary General in Poland also always stresses the NATO bond, the Euro-Atlantic bond. This is the North Atlantic Alliance, and people in Poland know this is the name of this alliance. It strengthens the feeling of security. It reassures people. Every visit of you, Mr. Secretary General, every visit to NATO units deployed to our country and in the neighborhood reassures people along NATO's eastern flank. And today, in the era of Russian aggression against Ukraine, is of particular importance. So thank you, Secretary General, for this meeting today. I see it as an element of preparations, our joint preparations for the upcoming NATO summit in The Hague, which I hope will be of a breakthrough landmark character. It will let us build this renewed bond, Euro-Atlantic bond, because today, I believe this is what we urgently need. Thank you very much.
All right, now we have time for a few questions. We'll start with Reuters.
Andrew Gray from Reuters. A question to both of you. As you know, the United States in recent days has cut off military and intelligence support to Ukraine. How much effect is that having, if any, on NATO's support for Ukraine through NSATU and the logistics base in Poland? And more broadly, what does that say about the coherence and the future of NATO as an alliance when the United States is working to weaken Ukraine on the battlefield and therefore strengthen Russia?
Well, first of all, let me be clear, it is important that Ukraine is in a position of strength, particularly when the peace talks, in whatever form they will take place, when they start. So the support has to continue, and therefore I welcome very much that the United States and Ukraine, as we speak, are discussing how to go forward with this and how to solve some of the difficulties there are based on the letter, the tweet and then a follow-up letter from President Zelensky of Tuesday this week. So that is now ongoing. I'm cautiously optimistic that this will lead to good results. So it's better not to comment on what-ifs, because it's my assumption, again, cautiously optimistic that things can move forward in a positive sense.
Ja ze swojej strony odpowiem tak. I
firmly believe that this is just temporary situation in terms of relations between the United States and Ukraine. I believe that this is just a temporary situation which is connected with the stalemate in the negotiations. If we wanted to make a comparison, we can say the following. If this is what happened in the Oval Office was an earthquake, right now we have got aftershocks. But I believe that this is the end, that this difficult situation is coming to an end, and that we will have what I said a few minutes ago, to which I also encourage President Volodymyr Zelensky, my neighbor, to return calmly to the negotiating table and to have a calm conversation with the President of the United States and generally with the United States of America, to talk about further support for Ukraine. And speaking about support for Ukraine, I do not only mean military support. I think about all types of support, also a very strong political support, also bordering with military support, so to speak, which also tends to be very effective in the world of politics. So there can be many solutions applied in this situation. That is why my approach is very calm all the time. These negotiations negotiations are very tough. I would say that we are seeing spectacularly tough negotiations right now, but I firmly believe that we are still in the negotiating process. And this is the fundamental thing for me. Now, in terms of Poland, as I said in my statement, Poland has supported Ukraine right from the start. We were the first country to send MiG-29 jets to Ukraine. We were the first ones to send more than 100 tanks, and today it's more than 360 tanks to Ukraine. We were the ones who sent hundreds of armored vehicles to Ukraine, and we did it when others were not sending any kind of assistance. So we have been helping Ukraine all the time. Also, thanks to us, this assistance can reach Ukraine every day, assistance from different corners of the world. If we could not receive this assistance, if we were not able to open our ports, our airports, our highways, railway lines, and railway stations, this assistance wouldn't have a way to reach Ukraine.
The woman with the dark hair on the aisle here.
Hello, Dominika Ciosici, Euronews. I have two questions. First to Secretary General. I wanted to ask you, because you already mentioned that Poland is playing a special role, and how can NATO use the fact that, especially in particular, President Duda has a good relationship with both President Trump and Zelensky. So do you have any idea how to use this opportunity? And my second question to President Duda, what do you think about the idea of sending Polish soldiers to Ukraine, even in peacekeeping mission? And if not, if you are not supporting this decision, why do you think that it is a bad idea? Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your question to me, and absolutely true that President Duda has been working closely with President Trump, like I did when I was Prime Minister of the Netherlands and the President as President of the Republic. Since 2016, early 2017, when President Trump started his first 4 years in the White House. And I think that's good, that we have experienced leaders in Europe who can liaise easily with our colleagues on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. In this case, was President Trump, and President Duda visited recently Washington. I was on the phone myself with President Trump last week. We hope also to visit soon here from NATO. So we take this step by step, but it is important that we dialogue, that we have these intense consultations between friends within the alliance. So I highly applaud it.
First of all, let me start from the end of your question. I have got quite a different concept how to stabilize the situation in Ukraine after the end of the war. I look at all the signals, I listen to all the proposals which are being made. I think that if there is a deal, mineral deal, which is achieved between the United States of America and Ukraine, then please be aware that Ukraine will become a strategic place for the United States. And I want to highlight it very strongly. It will be a strategic place for the United States due to minerals which will be extracted for the United States in Ukraine. I'm speaking about natural resources. And also, perhaps, there will be some kind of production established in terms of aluminium or other kinds of metals, or perhaps processing of other elements that could be done together between Ukraine and the US. So these are going to be strategic US interests, and I'm convinced that the US will guard its strategic interests in many different ways. They don't always have to send directly their forces. They can do it through politics, which is tough enough that they know, everybody will know, the reaction would be immediate if any kind of interest was infringed. So this is number one. So we could discuss whether some kind of NATO or European forces, peacekeeping forces would be necessary. Some projects talk about it. I'm saying it's not absolutely necessary. We may see a situation where on this demarcation line, when there will be a border between Russia and a sovereign and independent free Ukraine. Perhaps along this line, we will need some forces, some peacekeeping, some observation forces, monitoring forces. But I would not exclude that both parties would agree to have UN forces. Because let us remember, I think that Russia should agree to that. This is my conviction. And here different countries, various countries could deploy their contingents as part of the peacekeeping forces. Russia is a member of the UN Security Council, so I don't think that it would not approve of such a solution. Speaking about searching for real solutions which could be approved and which could work in practice. And point number 3, it's a matter of the reconstruction of Ukraine. All of us will need to help in this project. We will also need to protect Ukraine, to ensure security and order for the time of the rebuilding. We should also help Ukraine to restore its country, rebuild it, in the broad meaning, for example, in demining, in removing the unexploded materials and other things. Unfortunately, there are many of such unexploded ordnance or other materials in Ukraine. And in this case, European forces, but I'm speaking more about police forces, composed of engineers, of police contingents, could be looking for peace and order. Perhaps that could be a better solution, more apt solution, and a softer solution in terms of relations in this for this particular solution. And we talked about it with Secretary General. This could be the path. Anyway, I think that this should be discussed by us. In terms of Polish assistance for Ukraine, ladies and gentlemen, we keep helping Ukraine all the time. We are helping Ukraine 24/7. I would even dare say that through making our land available, through making our resources available for Ukraine, we help Ukraine 24/7. We have been doing so since the start of this aggression.
All right. With apologies, we're just about out of time, but we have time for one more question. The woman on the aisle in the black jacket, yes.
Okay. Hello, Agnieszka Drążkiewicz, Polish Radio, Warsaw. I have a few questions for Polish President, and I will be speaking Polish because English is not my strong side. Panie Prezydencie,
Mr. President, I would like to ask you about the declaration made by the Swedish government concerning Gripen jets. You said in your statement that there is no day when we would not scramble NATO jets to defend our airspace. Do you think that Swedish jets could improve our situation significantly? And in this context, would you see the possibility to send the last squadron of our post-Soviet MiG-29s? We know that we have still got one squadron, several items of those jets, and Volodymyr Zelensky asked you to do that so many times. Yes, indeed. As you have rightly said, it is true. President Volodymyr Zelensky has repeatedly asked to get the remaining small squadron or 2 squadrons of Polish MiG-29 jets, which are still serving and which were deployed for the air policing mission as part of the Polish Air Force. So let me say the following. We were speaking about one condition which would make it possible to deploy other or subsequent MiGs. We have already passed to Ukraine MiGs before. There is the last group left of this aircraft. But we were always saying, but we need to strike balance here. So we need to secure our space, our airspace. So if it turns out that our allies send aircraft which will replace the MiGs to protect Polish airspace, then I think that we need to keep our word. And as we promised to President Volodymyr Zelensky, those MiG-29s could be transferred. As these are post-Soviet airplanes, and we want to replace them with modern jets compatible with NATO standards, which live up to all the requirements, which meet all the standards of the contemporary battlefield at the top level.
All right, thank you. I'm so sorry that's all we have time for today, but we hope to see you next time.
Thank you.
Każdy parasol nuklearny będzie korzystny.
Every kind of nuclear umbrella will be beneficial for Polish security. I don't have any doubt about that.
Francja jest naszym
France is
sojusznikiem w
our
ramach sojuszu
ally in NATO.
Więc jakby
So
współpraca z sojusznikiem w ramach
cooperation
sojuszu
with an
północnoatlantyckiego
ally
jest
as
czymś
part of NATO is
absolutnie
something
oczywistym i
absolutely
naturalnym.
obvious and natural.
Będzie pan jutro w Sejmie? Wysłucha pan podsumowania premiera Tuska, jeśli chodzi o...
Mamy troszeczkę komplikacji.
We
bo
have
mamy
got some
przyjęcie
complications
liczby
because
spełniających
tomorrow we
całe
have got the
dużej
ceremony
grupy
of
ambasadorów,
credentials from
którzy
ambassadors
przybyli do Polski i
who
czekają
have come to
na
Poland and they're
wręczenie
waiting to present the credentials to me. They are waiting for the official start of their mission, but yes, I will try to listen to Prime Minister's speech tomorrow in the Polish Parliament.
Thank you so much.
Question off microphone.
Proszę państwa, ale ja nie
Ladies and gentlemen, I did not
polskiej
speak
miedzi,
about
bo to jest
Polish
manipulacja. Ja o
copper,
polskiej
Polska
miedzi nie
miedź.
powiedziałem
I did not say
nic.
anything about Polska miedź, not a word. A journalist asked me a question, indeed. I have known this person for many years. And actually, I thought that his question was ridiculous. But I wanted to be polite, and because of that, I answered, saying that we have got very good relations with the United States. And because of that, this is not a subject of our discussion. The president of the US says that we are a super reliable ally, and he said that he is committed to Poland, that he's involved in Poland. He said it personally. So what are we talking about?
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a small add-on.